Superman's dad. In Man of Steel, we get one of the dumbest scenes ever, the death of Jonathan Kent, Clark's adoptive father. It all happens during a tornado. The family is running for safety when the dog gets stuck in the car. Jonathan goes back to save the animal and manages to do it, but he hurts his leg in the process. He can't run back to the overpass where everyone else is safe. The tornado is getting closer and closer. Clark, already an adult, is ready to act. He could cover that distance in seconds, grab his dad, and come back without a scratch. But Jonathan raises his hand and tells him to stop. The gesture is clear. Don't risk it. Don't reveal who you are. The Man of Steel, the most powerful being on Earth, just stands there, watching his own father get taken and destroyed by the tornado. The idea of the movie is to show Jonathan as someone who sacrifices himself for his son's secret, but let's be honest, it was one of the dumbest decisions ever written in a superhero movie. Clark could have saved his father quickly and discreetly without anyone noticing. Instead, he just stood there, frozen, watching it all happen. The glasses. In the MCU, one of Spider-Man's dumbest moments happened in Spider-Man: Far From Home. Peter Parker has always been the inexperienced hero, trying to balance his teenage life with being a superhero, and it was exactly that naivete that opened the door for one of the worst decisions of his journey. After Tony Stark's death, the world was looking for a new Iron Man. Peter, still shaken, received the Edith glasses, which gave him access to insane technology, including combat drones. It was a gift that represented Tony's trust and the responsibility he was passing on to Peter. But Peter wasn't ready. First, he showed he didn't know how to handle the glasses, nearly launching a drone strike on a classmate by mistake.
Firing.
Not long after, Quentin Beck shows up, supposedly a hero from another dimension. Peter, desperate for a mentor figure, clings to him way too fast, and then he makes the fatal mistake. He hands the glasses to Beck without even thinking twice. He literally gives one of the most advanced and dangerous technologies in existence to a guy he barely knows, believing he was the real hero the world needed. Of course, Beck was the villain Mysterio, and he used everything to manipulate, deceive, and expose Peter.
See, that wasn't so hard.
Somebody get this stupid costume off me!
In the end, not only did Peter put innocent people in danger, but he also lost his secret identity and had his reputation destroyed. But hold on, he's not the only Spider-Man to make dumb decisions in the movies. The kiss. In Spider-Man 3, there's a scene that still divides fans to this day. Peter Parker kissing Gwen Stacy. It all happens during a parade honoring Spider-Man. Peter is being celebrated as a hero by the city, waving to the crowd and soaking up the attention. In the middle of it, Gwen shows up and the crowd asks them to kiss, recreating the famous upside-down kiss he had with Mary Jane in the first movie. Without really thinking about the consequences, Peter agrees. He pulls Gwen in and, in front of everyone, kisses her in a big, theatrical way. The problem is, Mary Jane is right there, watching it all.
Hope Pete's getting a shot of this.
To her, that gesture wasn't just a kiss, it was humiliation, especially because the moment repeated something that used to be special between her and Peter. What seemed like just another celebration instantly becomes a breaking point in their relationship. Mary Jane is hurt and insecure while Peter doesn't even realize how dumb his decision was. Doctor Strange! And believe it or not, one of the dumbest MCU decisions comes from none other than Doctor Strange himself. Before becoming the Sorcerer Supreme, he was already one of the best surgeons in the world. Brilliant, talented, and completely arrogant. Strange lived believing nothing could stop him. That overconfidence led to the choice that changed and ruined his life. One night, he takes his luxury sports car and speeds down a narrow, winding road. Not satisfied with just going fast, he starts messing with his phone, looking through patient files to decide who was worthy of his attention. In other words, zero focus on driving. The result couldn't be anything else, a brutal crash. The car flies off the road, flips several times, and is completely destroyed. The most tragic part is that, even though he survives, Strange loses the one thing most valuable to his surgical career, the steady control of his hands. If he had been even slightly responsible, none of this would have happened. He not only put his own life at risk, but he could easily have killed others on the road. Drunk experiment. In Fantastic Four, we learn that alcohol and science experiments don't mix well. In the movie, Reed is invited to help build a teleportation machine at the Baxter Foundation, designed to explore a new dimension. The group of young scientists wants to be the first to test the device, but they aren't officially chosen. That makes them furious. After all, they were the ones who created it. So what do? They get drunk and drag a friend along to test the equipment without any supervision. While intoxicated, they fire up the machine and end up being transported to another dimension. The ground in this new place quickly starts destabilizing, creating an extremely dangerous situation. Victor Von Doom falls in what seems like a fatal accident, while the others manage to escape alive. The absurd detail is that despite all this irresponsibility, the machine's explosion gives the survivors superpowers. Reed gets elastic abilities, Johnny turns into a living flame, Sue can turn invisible, and Victor eventually gains molecular manipulation power. The only one who really got screwed was poor Ben, who turned into the Thing.
He's been active in covert operations with a 100% success rate.
Well, the lesson here is clear. If you're drinking, don't decide to do a science experiment and travel to another dimension. Creating Ultron. In Avengers: Age of Ultron, Tony Stark makes one of the dumbest decisions ever, which ends up creating a brand new villain. At first, the reasoning even sounded good in his head. Protect the world using advanced technology. Tony finds an artificial intelligence inside Loki's scepter, and instead of carefully analyzing it or considering the risks, he decides to create Ultron with Bruce Banner's help. The idea was to build a global defense system, but as anyone with common sense could predict, mixing AI with weapons is a terrible idea. The problem is that Ultron quickly gains his own consciousness and decides that the greatest threat to the planet is humanity itself. Is he wrong though? Just kidding. Back to the story. In no time, Stark's plan turns into a disaster. Ultron starts attacking innocent people, building a robot army, and almost destroys Sokovia. Even though Tony is a genius, this is a textbook example of arrogance and making decisions on impulse. In the end, the Avengers had to clean up the mess, risking even more lives to fix Stark's mistake. Creating Ultron was, without a doubt, one of the dumbest choices in the Marvel Universe. Giving away his address. And creating Ultron wasn't Tony Stark's only dumb decision, because years earlier he had already made another one, giving his home address to the Mandarin. After his friend Happy was seriously injured by terrorists connected to the villain, Tony, instead of coming up with a safer plan, decided to confront the Mandarin head-on. He went on live TV and straight up gave out the address of his Malibu house. Yeah, he basically invited a dangerous man to attack his home.
My name is Tony Stark and I'm not afraid of you. Here's my home address.
And as expected, his house really does get attacked. To make things worse, Tony puts on his only unfinished armor and completely ignores the dozens of other fully functional suits he could have activated in seconds. He also leaves Pepper Potts exposed without even giving his girlfriend enough time to escape before the attack. In other words, he puts himself at the absolute worst disadvantage for no reason at all. The result? The house is destroyed. He almost dies, and he ends up relying on improvisation and luck to survive. This choice shows that even though Tony is a genius, an inventor, and a strategist, sometimes he lets his ego and impulsiveness speak louder than logic. Yelling at the Hulk. In the first Avengers movie, Loki makes one of the decisions he regrets the most in his entire villain career: yelling at the Hulk. During the Battle of New York, Loki gets thrown into Stark Tower and ends up being chased by the big green giant. Instead of trying to hide or think of a plan, Loki, frustrated because nothing is going his way, decides to scream at Hulk, proclaiming himself a god and even insulting the monster. The result? Hulk, already furious, doesn't think twice before grabbing Loki and smashing him into the ground over and over again. The villain is left groaning in pain, totally destroyed by the green hero.
Puny god.
Cops underground. In The Dark Knight Rises, Commissioner Gordon makes a decision that seemed smart at first, but quickly turned into a massive mistake. He orders Gotham's entire police force underground to try to capture Bane and his men. On paper, the idea makes sense. Gordon wants to use the tunnels to trap the villains, but he doesn't consider the obvious. Putting all the cops in one confined space is a terrible idea. Naturally, they all end up trapped, while Bane and the criminals he frees are left loose to wreak havoc on Gotham. It's a complete disaster in planning. Any basic combat strategy would have suggested sending only a specialized team, blocking exits, or at least coordinating external reinforcements. Instead, the entire police force was put in unnecessary danger, turning the operation into a fiasco. And the worst part is that Gordon was still recovering from his earlier encounters with Bane, which raises another question. Why let someone traumatized make such critical decisions? It's like asking someone with a broken hand to drive a race car. Clearly, clearly not the best idea. In the end, Gordon's decision not only fails miserably, but also allows Bane to take control of Gotham with ease. The black suit. Yeah, it looks like Peter Parker made a lot of dumb decisions in Spider-Man 3. One of them happened when he got the alien suit. In the movie, Peter simply wakes up stuck to the wall of a building and discovers he's wearing a brand new suit. All black, stylish, and packed with extra powers. The suit gave him increased strength and even changed shape however he wanted. For any hero, that alone would have been suspicious, but Peter just let himself get carried away by the excitement.
I feel... Wow. This feels good.
He even took a sample to Dr. Kurt Connors to analyze, but in practice, he ignored the risks completely. The suit clearly messed with his behavior, making him more aggressive and arrogant, but Peter didn't care. He was too thrilled with the new power and the new look. That lack of caution came at a high cost. The suit wasn't just some harmless alien clothing, but it was a living symbiote that fed off him and controlled his mind. By keeping it for so long, Peter not only put himself in danger, but he also paved the way for one of his greatest enemies, Venom. If he had stopped to question where that power came from or what the consequences of using it were, he could have avoided a lot of trouble. But as always, enthusiasm spoke louder than caution. The power of the sun. In Spider-Man 2, we see Dr. Otto Octavius make one of the dumbest decisions ever by a Marvel villain. At first, Octavius is introduced as a brilliant, even charismatic man with a grand vision, creating unlimited energy from a small nuclear fusion reaction, basically a mini sun in the palm of his hand. The idea could have revolutionized the world. The problem is that during the experiment, he let arrogance speak louder than reason.
Keep calm! It's only a spike! It'll soon stabilize!
In front of an audience of investors and colleagues, Octavius decides to use his mechanical arms to control the experiment. The device quickly spirals out of control, growing beyond expectations and pulling everything toward it. Harry Osborn yells at him to shut it down, but Octavius, completely fascinated by the power he created, refuses to stop the test. The result was tragic. His wife dies in the chaos, the lab is destroyed, and Octavius himself suffers an accident that permanently connects him to the tentacles, which begin to influence his mind. All of it could have been avoided if he had done the most obvious thing: shut down the experiment when it was clearly failing. Instead, his stubbornness and ego turned a respected scientist into one of Spider-Man's most dangerous villains, Star-Lord. In Avengers: Infinity War, we witnessed one of the dumbest decisions that affected the entire universe. And it came from none other than Star-Lord, the guy who was supposed to be the team's most laid-back and level-headed member. The scene happens on Titan. The group of heroes finally manages to weaken Thanos. Iron Man, Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, and the others were just about to pull the Infinity Gauntlet off his hand. It was the perfect moment, the golden chance to end the threat. But then the problem comes. Mantis has Thanos sedated, and that's when Nebula blurts out the truth. Gamora was killed by Thanos, sacrificed in exchange for the Soul Stone. Star-Lord, overwhelmed with grief, completely loses control. He starts punching Thanos, yelling, and letting his rage take over. That attack breaks Mantis's focus, and she loses her hold on Thanos. The result? Thanos wakes up, regains full control of the situation, and manages to head to Wakanda for the last stone. All because Peter Quill couldn't hold back his emotions for just a few more seconds. Of course, his grief was real. He loved Gamora, but the choice was dumb. 1 minute of self-control could have saved half the universe. So, which of these decisions was the dumbest? Do you know another one that should have been in this video? Drop it in the comments. On the screen right now, you'll see a video about the biggest sacrifices in superhero movies. Click and watch it. See you there.